The DCCC has recently put out this new rule where, well, I'll show you the new rule. So the DCCC sure as hell isn't going to let another AOC win. And this was written on the 22nd of March, so this is just to catch you up. And right there's AOC. So the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, otherwise known as the DCCC or the D-Trip, if you want to be one of the cool kids, I guess you say D-Trip. So the D-Trip released a new set of rules on Friday that aims to protect incumbent candidates across the country at the cost of also cracking down on any ideological progress or debate about the party's direction. The DCCC's new hiring standards, which, per the National Journal, went out to more than 100 political firms that consult or work on campaigns around the country, say the organization will not contract with or recommend the services of any firm that chooses to work for an incumbent Democrat's opponent. So that means that they will not work with anyone who challenges an incumbent in a place where Democrats are likely to win. So in other words, if a political firm challenges the status quo at all, like working with Ayanna Pressley or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the 2018 midterms, when they both defeated longtime incumbents, they face a DCCC blacklist. According to the National Journal, the new protocol, intentionally debuted early in the off year before most campaign hiring begins, presents a stark financial deterrent to the country's top firms that provide essential services ranging from polling to TV advertising to strategy. It could cripple would-be primary opponents' ability to entice top talent to join their staff. The DCCC independent expenditure arm doles out millions in contracts to consultants and drives more revenue toward them by connecting campaigns with vetted operatives. The DCCC is oftentimes the gatekeeper for consultants to get to candidates, said Ian Russell, a campaign media strategist and former top official at the committee. Unless you have a steady stream of income coming from another source, it would be very difficult to navigate the House world if you were shut out by the DCCC. The DCCC's weak justification for these rules is to protect the Democrats' hard-won majority in the House, but this doesn't do that. Blocking the best political firms from working with progressive primary opponents doesn't make fragile centrists and swing districts any safer from Republicans in the general election, but it certainly hinders those districts from pulling up a stronger candidate if one comes along. It could also have the effect of helping protect all incumbents, not just the obstinate centrist ones who pander to the Republicans or the status quo. So this move by the DCCC has been highly controversial, and people do worry that it will hinder candidates that are like AOC or like the ones that Justice Democrats and Brand New Congress put up. And disclaimer here, I have previously volunteered for Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats as a writer. I no longer do. So it could hinder their progress, and it's just, you know, the purpose of it, they say one thing, but really the purpose of it is to hinder these progressive candidates. They don't want another AOC. She's shaking things up. They don't want another Ayanna Pressley. They don't want another Ilhan Omar. They don't want another Rashida Tlaib. You know, they're comfortable with their incumbents. They want the same old, same old. They want the status quo. So the DCCC is doing its darn best to try to keep out those candidates. But I really think they're going to shoot themselves in the foot, because really, what's a primary for? It's to figure out who is the best candidate, and the determination of who is the best candidate is made by the voters. So they're taking out choice. They might have a weak incumbent who just hasn't been challenged in forever, or who has been challenged by weaker candidates who keeps winning. And really, the new progressive candidate could be the one who is better to beat the GOP candidate. They're not very smart, those DCCC people. You would think they'd be smarter about politics up there. Let's go into what else they're doing. And this was published on Monday, this past Monday. Progressive House Dems are going to war with the DCCC. Less than a week after the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee announced it would blacklist vendors that work with candidates who primary incumbent House Democrats, new members who found success in that very strategy are pushing back, calling the policy extremely divisive and warning it would undermine women and people of color. And that is an excellent, excellent point. It will definitely undermine women and people of color. And by the way, I want to take a little break to say smash that like button if you haven't already. It really helps us get new viewers, and become a member to get great perks, including free access to our upcoming documentary that's to be released on the 23rd of this very month of April. And you'll get free and early access. So go ahead and become a member at statuscoup.com/join. Now getting back to this DCCC story. Over the weekend, House Reps Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts, and Ro Khanna of California challenged the DCCC's new policy refusing to hire political vendors that work with candidates seeking to challenge Democratic incumbents. The policy, which has reportedly already manifested itself in political consultants dropping out of a primary challenger's nascent 2020 campaign, works to scare off vendors by threatening their access to the DCCC's independent expenditure arm, which pays millions in contracts and connects vendors to other Democratic Opportunities resources. Ocasio-Cortez, who defeated former Rep. Joe Crowley last year, called for small dollar donations to swing candidates on Saturday, invoking a few candidates such as California Reps Mike Levin and Katie Porter and Illinois Rep. Lauren Underwood. Ocasio-Cortez even went as far as to tell supporters not to give any money to the DCCC at all. She said the DCCC's new rule to blacklist plus boycott anyone who does business with primary challengers is extremely divisive and harmful to the party. My recommendation, if you're a small dollar donor, pause your donations to DCCC and give directly to swing candidates instead. Pressley also tweeted saying, "I believe fiercely in the potential of our party, but we cannot credibly lay claim to prioritizing diversity and inclusion when institutions like the DCCC implement policies that threaten to silence new voices and historically marginalized communities." Khanna told CNN in a statement, "The DCCC's policy is the kind of policy protecting the Washington establishment that plays directly into Trump's hands, and that Chairwoman Illinois Rep. Cheri Bustos is allowing the DCCC to blacklist candidates like himself." Khanna defeated former Rep. Mike Honda in 2016. It seems that these appeals, two from some of the most visible Democratic freshmen, mean nothing to the DCCC, which unequivocally shrugged. "This transparent policy follows through on that exact promise and will protect all members of the Democratic caucus, regardless of where they fall within our big tent," DCCC spokesperson Cole later said. Chances are this won't be the last time the party's left wing clashes with the DCCC, especially considering that moderates are already strategizing their revenge for the last round. Again, this was in Splinter News by Samantha Grasso. So what AOC and Ayanna Pressley and Ro Khanna are saying is, hey, we're in here. We are good. We were good candidates. We won. We went on to win the primary. Here we are. We don't take corporate cash. We are uncorruptible. But here we are working hard for our country. And what you're doing, DCCC, is handicapping other candidates who might be like us. And that's absolutely true. And no one's saying that anyone ever thought that the DCCC wasn't corrupt itself, because it is. Like, if you're giving money to the DCCC or ever have, you may want to rethink that. And like AOC says, give directly to candidates, because the DCCC is absolutely establishment, one of the most establishmenty of establishment things out there. So it will come as no surprise to you that they are accepting cash from lobbyists right after their announcement. So this is the last article on this one. And this is in readsledge.com. And it's by Alex Koch and Andrew Perez. As it works to stifle primary challengers, DCCC takes more money from corporate lobbyists. A number of lobbyists representing major health insurers and oil and gas giants are bundling big checks for the DCCC. Ugh, it's so frustrating. Corporate lobbyists are raising an increasing amount of money for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, DCCC, at a time when the House Democrats' campaign arm is taking fire from the left for its effort to freeze out primary challengers. Let's see. The DCCC raised nearly $19 million in the first 2 months of this year, more money than it had raised by this point last election cycle, and the committee is relying more heavily on corporate lobbyists to collect checks. So part of the reason is because people are afraid of Donald Trump winning again, so they're giving to the DCCC because they think that's the best thing to do. It absolutely is not. And then we have the corporate lobbyists who are indeed lobbying to get what they want. Lobbyists whose clients include healthcare, oil, gas, and coal interests raised almost $440,000 for the DCCC in January and February. Federal Election Commission records show many of their clients oppose progressive priorities like Medicare for all, healthcare system, or a Green New Deal to mitigate climate change. I do not take money from corporations, PACs, or lobbyists, Ro Khanna said in an email on Tuesday. The DCCC should not either. A DCCC spokesperson did not respond to questions from MapLight and Sledge, nor did any of the committee's lobbyist bundlers. So you can see that people like Ro Khanna, AOC, are coming out against this, but a lot of people just don't even know what's happening. They don't realize that what the DCCC even is, and they definitely don't realize where it's getting its money from or how much it's getting. They don't realize that the DCCC isn't all good and giving to Democratic candidates or giving to good vendors to help the candidates. They're taking money from terrible, terrible lobbyist bundlers. Also, in February 2016, the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, quietly reversed an Obama-era ban on contributions from federal lobbyists and political action committees. Lobbyists raised roughly $100,000 for the DCCC in 2015 through 16, before raising close to $1.9 million for the committee during the 2018 election cycle. This year, led by centrist Democratic Rep. Cheri Bustos of Illinois, the DCCC has already received as much money via donations bundled by corporate lobbyists than in all of 2017. So let's reread the most important line in this. In February 2016, the DNC quietly reversed an Obama-era ban on contributions from federal lobbyists and political action committees. That is extremely important. Here is a graph that tells you more. After only 2 months, corporate lobbyists were on track to provide the DCCC with more than $2 million in bundled donations in 2019. The DCCC has been under fire from progressives who resent its policy of blacklisting consultants, most of whom don't lobby for major corporations, in races where incumbent Democrats are challenged. Very, very disturbing. I'll definitely stay on this. Jordan will stay on this as well. And, you know, it's important to not let the DCCC get away with this unnoticed. We can't let them get away with this bundled cash from lobbyists. Lobbyists that are completely against what Democrats want and what even most people in the country want, like Medicare for all. You know, take the name Democrat or Republican out and people want Medicare for all. People do care about the environment. People care about the things that Bernie Sanders proposes, like a living wage, a lot of things. And the DCCC is directly opposing that, bowing to lobbyists.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.